Hello, hello, hello. This is your Captain Panic speaking, and welcome on board of another Touchdesigner tutorial. So, I am finally back on my PC, and I don't have to record on my laptop anymore, which means I am able to do tutorials more frequently again. And yeah, to not lose myself in endless talks again, let's get started with the tutorial. So in the background you can already see what we are going to do today. Lately I came up with this kind of northern light aurora animation by accident, but I really love it, and I posted it on Instagram and many of you loved it too. So I decided to record a tutorial for it because it's so soothing. Nice. Yeah, it's a kind of big network with lots of different feedback loops and also some SOP action. Also chop action, so actually a chop, SOP, top kind of thing. But it's not that complicated actually, it just looks a little bit terrifying, so heads up. And let's get started from scratch. I will see you on my screen. So, welcome on my screen. As you can see, we are getting started from scratch. I usually have my default startup file open, but I decided to do everything from scratch so everybody can follow along. So, in our animation, we will set up a small particle setup first, so we get those light trails which move smoothly, and I came up with a kind of nice way to do that. So the first thing we will need is a chop noise, and in that chop noise, under the channel section, we will just type TX, TY and TZ. Make sure you make a space between those, because then you will get 3 different channels named by the channel name you selected. And then I wanna animate those channels on the X, Y and Z axis. So I type abs time dot seconds in here, and I just copy it and paste it here and also paste it here. So after that we will make a trail chop. So it just records the movement from our noise channel and makes it a trail. And in here we make some changes and set the window length to 1.09, so it's a little bit faster. And then after that we will just create a null. And now we are going to use this channel data to create a SOP out of it. So we will use the chop2 SOP, just set it up here, and then we will use that null inside of that chop. And then it creates a line out of those 3 channels which are in here, so it moves regarding to those channels. Yeah. So we keep everything on default here, I think. Yeah. And after it we will just create an attributes, so we get normals and everything, but we don't do anything in here. And then after that we will just bring in a particle SOP. So it just creates those kind of dots on our geometry. And in here we make some changes because we want some more particles. I set it to 1000 on the birth parameter, so we get more particles. And also I want those particles to move around a little bit. So I made some changes in the forces tab. So I set the external force to 0.1, 0.1 and 0.3. Also I like some wind, set to 0.2, 0.1 and 1. And then some turbulence, 3, 4 and 1 here. Okay. Also I set the turb period to 1.18. Not sure why I did that, but when you look at this, you can already see we have some kind of nice movement happening here. Also it looks a bit bugged because the camera is moving around weirdly right now. But yeah, it looks kind of good for now. Maybe we will make some adjustments later, because right now it seems a little bit too quick here, but we will see. So, okay. So after that particle, we want to render this. So out of that, we just make our noodle, select tab, and then under the comp, we select the geometry. And in order to render, we will need a light and a camera, which we keep on default. And yeah, okay, perfect. And then we will just create a render, and we will connect that render to a null and make it visible in the background. And then on that render, we select our resolution. I decided to work with 1920 by 1080, and I set the pixel format to 32-bit float. All right. And another thing I will do, I will insert a RGB key before the null, so we get a black background and can see a little bit clearer what is happening. And we give us some space here because we will insert a big network. So, okay. Now let's get started with using this in order to create some nice light trails out of this. So I decided to treat every particle as some light source, and which gives us a nice kind of look. So the first thing we will do is create a null, and then we will head into our first feedback loop and create a comp. I will set the operation mode to over, and then I will just create a feedback, connect it, and make this one the target layer. So, okay. So let's give us some space again, and yeah, now we can see we track the movement of our particles, which leaves a mess. So the first thing we want to do is insert a level and set the opacity in the post to 0.975, so our trails get invisible over the time. And also I will bring in a keyboard in chop, so we can reset our feedback loop easily. So bring this over here, make the viewer active, drag onto here, and drag it onto the pulse, and chop the reference. And another thing I will do is I will use this keypad in to reset our particles as well. So I'm just using this one and drag it in onto the birth pulse in the particle sub. So, because that makes it easier to reset everything at once, because when we don't do that, there are some weird trails left. So I decided to do it both. Okay, so now we have this kind of cool look, which is not what we want. So we will insert some more stuff into that feedback loop. So the first thing I want is a transform, where I will set the scale to 1.01 on both axes. So we get the feeling of floating a little bit more. And then after the transform, I will insert a blur. So it just blurs out. And I set the filter size to 3, so it really kind of blurs only softly. And then that's basically it for this first feedback loop. But no worries, there will be more. So let's give us some space again. And now let's actually do another thing, because right now our trail is kind of gray, which is far from what we want, because we want to simulate some northern lights, which are mostly reddish, greenish, purplish, or whatever you like. So we need to bring in some colors onto those particles. And the best we can do to do this is to create a material for the particles. So to do that, let's bring in a noise top. And first of all, change the resolution to whatever resolution you decided to work with. Set the pixel format to 32-bit float. Turn off the monochrome, because we want colors. And then I also decided to change some settings here. So I set the period to 3, harmonics to 2, and I set the exponent to null. And another thing I did, I used a Perlin 4D noise instead of a simplex 3D noise. I don't know why I did that. As I said, this whole animation came up by accident. Yeah. So then I will connect this to a null, and then I will bring in a material, and in fact a constant material, which I will create here. And then I'm going to use this one as the color map for it. So bring it in here, and then use this, drag it onto the geo, and use it as Parm material. So now we are getting colors. Nice. I'm a little bit confused because they seem a little bit too colorful for me. So what did I do wrong? Also maybe let's bring in some animation onto our noise top. So type in abs time.seconds, maybe multiply it with 0.1 or something like that. Yeah, maybe not. Yeah, so that looks kind of nice. So let's bring up the exponent of the noise to 0.5 and animate it a little bit, so we get a more desaturated color and not that super heavy colors. And all right, let's go on with our animation here. So after our feedback loop, the first thing we will do is displace this a little bit. So insert a displace, and then use this one as the displace image, and bring down the displace weight to 0.062 on both axes. And also we will insert a blur for our displace image. So insert this on the second input and bring down the filter size to 2, so it's really just slightly. Alright, this is exactly what we want. And now, after this, we will insert a transform to get a black background here, so we have no alpha left. Give us some space again. And after that, I brought in something from the palette. Under the palette here, if you don't have the palette open, you need to hit this button here. And then under image filters, I used the RGBA delay. And I just plugged this in here and this in here. Also, I'm seeing we get some displace glitches from our displays here, and we can get rid of this. We can go back to our displays and just set the offset weight until we don't see it anymore. So it's something like here. Yeah, 0.096 seems to work good. We don't get any glitches on the edges anymore, which is amazing. So, okay, let's continue. On the RGB delay, I left everything on default because it works kind of good like this. And then after it, I inserted a null just because we will create another feedback loop now. So first of all, insert a comp. And in this comp, we will also set the operation mode to over. And then we will create a feedback connected here. And then we will create a level here in between the null and the comp. And in that level, we will bring down the opacity of our animation to 0.01. And then after that, don't get confused by the black screen. We will see something again soon. So first thing we will do, or you need to take care of, is that the level is over the feedback. This is pretty important. So if you did the level first and then the feedback, make sure the level and feedback after it. Okay, so after that comp, we will create a blur, which we will set to 4 on the filter size. Everything else stays on default. And then after it, bring in a displace, which we will bring up here. And then we will create a select, because now we will use this feedback into that select. Just drag it in here. And then after that select, create a slope. And I set the strength of the slope to -2. and then insert a blur after it, and set the pre-shrink to 2 and the filter size to 32. And then I will connect it here into the second input and make this displace the target layer of our feedback. Then we will need to connect this one to our feedback as well, so make sure to use that keyboard in on the feedback pulse so we can reset everything. And now we don't see anything. So something went wrong. I'm not sure what. I will take care of this. Okay, I found the issue. It took me a while to figure it out. But I just realized that I typed in null point null one into the gamma and not into the opacity. So no wonder nothing was showing up. Yeah, I'm sorry about the short confusion. So now we can actually go on again. You should see those kind of trails showing up right now. If you don't, make sure you typed it into the right section here. And yeah, now we are actually pretty close to what we want to achieve in the end. But right now it looks kinda dull, and it needs more sparkle, and it needs to glow a little bit more. So we will take care of some nice and glowing edges here. So after that displace, let's create a null to close that feedback loop, and then we will create a comp. Oops, not a constant, but a comp. And we will set the operation mode to multiply or leave it on default. And then we will create a edge and just connect it here. And in this edge, we will leave the strength on 1 and also everything else on default. And after that, we insert a level after that null. So we just get the colors back into the edges, because here we have a white edge, but we want the colors to be the same as our reference, but we want them to be a little bit brighter. So I played around with the numbers in this level. So set the brightness to 1.9 and the gamma to 2.82. So it's just really nice and bright. And yeah. So now we can't really see anything anymore, and to get our edges to be visible again, we will create another feedback loop to get some kind of glow on our edges. So make a comp after our comp here, set it to over, create a feedback, connect it here, make this comp the target layer, and then we can see something again, which looks kind of nice and gives us a better feeling of what we're after. But it's not where we want to be yet. So after that feedback, first of all, use our keyboard 1 from here again and drag it onto the pulse so we can reset everything. And after that feedback, insert a blur and set it up to 32 on the filter size. So it's just really nice and blurred and glowy. But we also want it to disappear a little bit. So after that blur, set a level, set it to 0.99 on the opacity, not the gamma. And yeah, now we get some glowing edges, which we will combine with our reference we made here. So make a select top and drag the null we had in the beginning into the select, and then we will combine those two together again by using a comp, connect those two, and then set the operation mode to over maybe, or maybe also add, so it's even more glowing, or maybe also maximum is, no, that's boring. Maybe screen is also nice, but I liked add the most, but there are more different operation modes you can play with. I decided to go with add. And basically this is the setup. We have our nice and pastelish, I don't know if that's a word, colors, which we could use, and we could just export it like that. But if you want to have a little bit more colors or different colors, you could create a noise out of our comp and use it on both inputs. Set the output mode to noise only. Set it to 32-bit float. Turn off the monochrome. Turn down the harmonics. I bring up the period a little bit, maybe to 5, and then you could animate it on the z-axis, lapse time dot seconds, maybe multiplied with 0.05, so it's really softly animated. And then you could just use a comp again and combine those two, maybe set it to add again, or maybe not. That's a little bit too crazy. If you see northern lights like this, there might be something wrong. So maybe use maximum, minimum, or just leave it on multiply, just as you like. And then if you wanted to glow a little bit more, even more, you could just go under the image filters again and use the bloom here and connect it here again, and then play around with the threshold a little bit, and maybe also the glow color, so you could really get some kind of cool effects using this bloom. Maybe set the intensity a little bit down, and yeah, that's it. But that's the setup. So this time it was a little bit more advanced, and not like my latest tutorials all were a little bit more simple, so I decided to do a longer one again. I hope it wasn't too complicated. As always, the project files for this are available on my Patreon. If you don't want to follow this complicated mess along, you can just download it there if you sign up. So this is my advertisement. Sign up for my Patreon to get the project files, so you don't have to listen to me messing up this network. Yay. Okay, so you already know what's coming now. Thank you for listening to this tutorials. Thank you for supporting me, and thanks for everything. Stay creative, stay kind. Hopefully hear you next time, and bye bye.